Hey guys, what's up? Welcome to Hardwood HQ with me, Gio, and we are back. Yes, we're back. If you're new here, you might be thinking, did we ever start? Yes, we did. We started this channel last October when the NBA season started, but I wasn't able to really follow up and do videos consistently. And it's kind of funny that I'm relaunching or rebooting this channel right now. As a matter of fact, when the NBA has actually postponed the NBA season, and we don't know if we're going to have the NBA playoffs, we don't know if we're going to have the finals. So basketball literally has stopped on the basketball court, but it's a perfect time for me to be able to relaunch the channel given I have more time. So please do subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and if you want to click the notification bell or button or whatever that looks like, please do so. And we're going to have more of basketball content. And I'm going to do this on a regular basis, on a consistent basis. And I promise you that at least we're going to have a lot of great topics or conversations here. Today, it's a perfect time to relaunch, as I mentioned. The basketball has stopped on the court. The NBA has stopped the season so far, but there has been a lot of buzz and a lot of talk about basketball in the past few days. And who are we talking about? We're not talking about LeBron James. We're not talking about Steph Curry. We're not talking about Kevin Durant or any of the new stars. We're going retro because Michael Jordan has once again been trending in the internet and Netflix and ESPN, and because the long-awaited The Last Dance, the documentary, the 10-part documentary from ESPN in connection or in partnership with Netflix is out. It just came out. If you're in the US, it came out yesterday, April 19th, but it went out here in the Philippines April the 20th. So I got to watch the first two episodes, and that's what I want to talk about today. And I hope that I can get some reactions from you guys on two things. We want to talk about. You can comment on the YouTube video if you're watching on YouTube, or if you're watching on our Facebook page, Hardwood HQ on Facebook. You can comment there, and hopefully we have a gracious and a good conversation, which is what basketball is great. It's not just a great sport, teaches you a lot of things, but also great conversation if you're mature enough to engage in a objective and sort of you don't take it too personally, then it's going to be a fun conversation. So see you there in the comments. Hopefully we can have great interaction there. But two things I want to talk about today. And first is a few impressions, or what my thoughts are for the first two episodes. Love to hear your thoughts about the first two episodes as well. And the second one is a little bit more tricky, is having been reminded, or we're going back, or we're going retro to the 90s, the Bulls. Of course, specifically, the documentary talks about the Chicago Bulls' last dance in the 97-98 season. But of course, we all know that the Bulls won 6 championships, two back-to-backs with a two-year hiatus by Michael Jordan as he went to basketball. So the second thing I want to talk about in a little bit later is if you think there is a team that can beat or could have beaten those Chicago Bulls. And I'm going to give a list of a few teams that uh, I feel that could have matched up with them. And we'll discuss if they could actually have won against the Bulls in a 7-game series. But the first thing is, I want to talk about the impressions on the series so far. I I have been waiting for this series for the last year, ever since it was announced. Ever since that the trailers have been coming out, and it was written that this would be an in-depth or an inside look at that championship run by the Chicago Bulls. I wasn't a Bulls fan before. I wasn't a Michael Jordan fan. If you haven't guessed, I'm a big Spurs fan. I've been so since 1992. So I really I understood the greatness of MJ. I watched him growing up with Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, John Paxson, Craig Hodges on the first three-peat, and in the second three-peat, of course, Tony Kukoc and Dennis Rodman and those Judd Bushlers, Steve Kerrs, and all of those. So I wasn't really a fan of them. I respected the Chicago Bulls. I knew Michael Jordan is the greatest player to ever play basketball, and Scottie Pippen really was the best two-way player in the NBA at that time, and maybe we could still argue if we compare him with the best two-way players of all time, he'd be right there at number one or number two or even number three. He could be number one at all time. So they were a great team, but I never rooted for them. But I respected them so much. So, but nonetheless, I was really excited for this throwback series. The first two episodes really brought me back to my teenage years, into those days with the internet was just starting, no social media, and it was just a different NBA back then. It was a different culture back then, a different style of play. So that really immediately drew me in when I started to watch this. Uh, the first two episodes of the Last Dance, particularly, of course, in the first episode, we saw that it was more about Michael Jordan's beginning in North Carolina, and when he started in the NBA, and were seeing an in-depth look really on in how Michael Jordan became that player he was in 1997. And I think that's a great insight, not just for us fans during the 90s, but I think it's great for the fans to be able to understand that the young guys who were not able to watch Michael Jordan in his prime, or who have just been watching highlights in YouTube, and I'm not against any LeBron fans or Stephen Curry fans or the great the late great Kobe Bryant, but if you would see Michael Jordan, just his mentality, the way that he approached the game, his ruthlessness, and just he was really an assassin, and the win at all cost mentality. I know that that's the Mamba mentality, but before the Mamba mentality, there was Michael Jordan, and I'm sure Kobe, and I'm sure he acknowledged that he patterned his game, not just his game, but the way he approached game. He patterned that from Michael Jordan's game. So it's just an interesting, and it's just great for us to be able to see that, and that the insight was there on how he became that player, and it was evident in the first two episodes. The way that he would approach teammates, the way he would scream at teammates, and I'm hoping to see more of that in the coming episodes, and how that progressed. And it's great to see also that dynamic between Michael and the ownership, and how is the dynamic different from the NBA's player ownership relationship these days, and also, of course, the Scottie Pippen, really his contract. I was, even though I lived, or I really experienced that, or I was there to watch that, I never realized how underpaid Scottie was, and it was really a revelation. Even if these were just the first two episodes, and they were not really going in depth or really going inside the locker room yet. You could see that it really is shaping up to be a great series. So can't wait for the next episodes. But it just, it just this my takeaways, two takeaways for these two episodes is: number one, it just solidifies and it just cements, and it just reminds us that Michael Jordan is the greatest of all time in terms of basketball. Just the way that who he was, his talent combined with his will to win, and just that attitude, that mentality, that made him the best. Just that I never realized he had that monster of a series. I think I was too young to remember that 1986 series that he had against the Boston Celtics, wherein the first game he scored 49 points, and the second game he scored 63 points, and just wow, I think he averaged 40 plus points per game that series, although they lost. But you just saw there the greatness of Michael, and then that just continued to skyrocket until he became that myth or that living legend. And we all know that Michael Jordan 6-0 in the finals. Teams were just intimidated to play the Bulls. You would rarely find a team that were confident enough, or that were really just that were really not intimidated by the Bulls, and that made them great, not just during their first three-peat run, but the second three-peat run. The second takeaway was that, again, in relation to Scottie Pippen, was that, wow, I just realized Scottie, um, he was underpaid. I mean, $18 million from 1991 to 1998. I mean, that's crazy. Not just compared to today's salary, but just wow, just during that time. I mean, they were earning millions. But it's interesting that Pippen took that deal. That he was probably, arguably, one of the top five players during that time, but he chose to, have that security of the deal, that long-term deal, uh, which was a really low figure even during that time. And it's interesting, the dynamic, or the context behind that was, um, I think, in my personal opinion, I think Scotty made a choice, and he made a choice because he wanted to support his family, and we all got to respect that. But I don't think he realized how much uh, the rates, or the salaries would go up, and I think he couldn't negotiate or get out of that deal, or renegotiate his deal, even though he was probably one of the top five players, if not even the top three players during that time. So it was kind of sad to see that, but I could see why Scotty would take that deal, and so it is what it is. But just an interesting thing to look back during that time, that Scottie Pippen, during his prime, during his heyday in Chicago, he was one of the top five players in the game, but uh, really, really criminally underpaid. And I can't remember how much he got paid when he moved to Portland, or when he went to the Houston Rockets late in his career. He wasn't the same Scottie Pippen, but hopefully, I'm going to research on that. Hopefully, he got his due, or he got his pay. So those are my two thoughts. Really, just really being able to see the greatness of Michael again, and hopefully the young guys are able to see that as well, and they understand that Michael Jordan was not just this scoring machine, but he was really the greatest of all time, in terms of how his talent wise, and how he approached his game, just that mentality, and of course that Scottie Pippen. Interestingly, he was the second greatest. He's the second greatest Bull of all time, top 50 NBA all time player, and he's in the Hall of Fame. But just playing with that kind of salary, even that, I just, even if I was there to witness that, I just still can't believe it. So those are my thoughts, and I'm just excited. As I mentioned, I'm excited to watch the rest of the series. Wow, I mean, why can't they just make it? They just drop the whole thing on one sitting, like the rest of the Netflix series, or like the one in the Formula One, Drive to Survive. But I guess they want to keep this hype going, and just keep this going for a little while, which is understandable. So the second thing, aside from the takeaways, is hopefully that we can talk about in the comment section, is if there are any, if do you think that there are any team that could have beat the '90s Bulls. I'm talking about the '91 to '93 Bulls, or the '96 to '98 Bulls. Uh, in my opinion, I'm gonna exclude the '94, '95 Rockets. I'm gonna exclude the the Jazz, the great Jazz teams that they faced, because obviously they didn't beat the Bulls, and even those Orlando teams, those great Penny and Shaquille O'Neal uh, 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 Magic teams. So I'm going to focus on the 2000s and the 2010 era teams. So I have on top of my list just three teams that I think could match up with these Bulls. Number one is, of course, the three-peat Lakers of Kobe and Shaq in 2000 to 2003. So I think that was the great next dynasty after Michael and Scotty and that great Chicago run. So that's the first team. The second team is an interesting team because it's the LeBron James Miami Heat run of Dwayne Wade, of course, with Chris Bosh. So that back-to-back team, I think that's a great matchup for those Bulls, given LeBron and D Wade. And the last is, of course, the last or the current dynasty. Even though they lost last year's championship, it's the Warriors team of Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and if you want to still include Kevin Durant, even though he's now with the Nets. So I think those three teams coming to mind in terms of who is able to match up or who could beat them in the 7 game series. Um, in my estimation, you know, uh, I think nobody could have still beaten these Bulls. And let's go through those three teams I mentioned. It would be interesting uh, series, or I don't know how you pronounce that, but against those three teams. But I think the closest one that could have beat them was Shaq and Kobe's Lakers, that three-peat. They had a great run in 2000. They beat the Pacers, they beat the Nets, and then they beat um, not they beat the Nets in 2003, and they beat the Sixers of Allen Iverson. So they may not be the strongest teams, but they were still a juggernaut, and the West was so tough. So to come out of the West means they virtually were the champions anyway. So, but I still believe that even though Shaq was a force during that time, he was probably arguably the best player during that time, and Kobe was the second best player in the NBA. Although there were a great number of players there during that time: Kevin Garnett, Tim Duncan, Allen Iverson, Tracy McGrady, all of those guys, Vince Carter in his prime. I think you could argue that Kobe and Shaq was number one and number two, the best number one and number. They could be ranked number one and number two, but I still think they couldn't beat the Bulls because first of all, if you're talking that hey they would dominate because Shaq was there in the paint, well, Shaq was the dominant force that he was. And he was that dominant force even in those Orlando teams. And they arguably had the great team, or almost the same team, with Penny Hardaway, Nick Anderson, Horace Grant, and even Dennis Scott, and all of even with those great teams of Shaquille O'Neal, and he was doing his thing back then against Chicago. You know, when Michael came back and they lost to the Magic, that was when Michael was out of shape, out of rhythm. He came back. That 72 a win Chicago team in 1996, they literally swept and destroyed that Magic team of Penny and Shaquille O'Neal, and that ended actually Shaquille O'Neal's run, and he bolted in free agency to the Los Angeles Lakers. So, yeah, he would have dominated, but again, they would have found a way to at least contain him. If you watch games during the 90s, and even when the time that Shaq was with the Lakers, there were a lot of highlights in YouTube, and if you watch full games, wherein Dennis Rodman, even though with his size he was significantly smaller, but just his smarts and his psyche and the way that he could get into Shaq's head and he would give Shaq trouble, or at least give him a run for his money. So Shaquille would still put up his numbers, but I think that would not be a difference maker. Maybe you're going to say, well, how about Kobe? Well, Kobe was a great player during that time. Again, respect to Kobe Bryant. He was an all-star. He was great, but he wasn't the Mamba or the Kobe who dropped 81, or he wasn't yet on that legendary level wherein They won back-to-back championships in 2009 and 2010. That was the great, or the legacy, or that was really the pinnacle of Kobe. This was a young guy who obviously was talented, but he wasn't on Michael's level yet, or he wasn't that on that plane yet. So, and obviously, the testament to that was in 2004 or 2005, when they 2000 right 2004, they won the championship. Sorry, the Lakers won the championship in 99, 2000. Uh, sorry, 2000, 2001, and 2002. So they won the championship there. But in 2004, they lost against the Detroit Pistons, and that was with Gary Payton, Karl Malone, Shaquille O'Neal, Derek Fisher, and the rest of the crew were there, but they still lost to the Detroit Pistons in one of the biggest upsets. And again, we saw Kobe there. He was a great player, and Shaquille O'Neal was a great player. Although you could argue there were tensions there, but still, um, the fact that they were beaten in 5 games just highlighted, just the good and the bad of that team. They were great. Kobe and Shaq was a great one-two combination, but they just couldn't. Kobe, I remember watching Kobe in that series. As great as he was so clutch in game two, but in the rest of the games, especially all those games in Detroit, he was just turning the ball over like crazy. He was just taking bad shot after bad shot, forcing things, and that wasn't he. That just highlighted he wasn't there yet in terms of uh, the smarts. He was definitely an intelligent player, but he wasn't on his legendary level yet. So, and that's the reason why I think the Bulls uh, could have beaten them, or would have beaten them in the 7 game series. That Chicago would have found a way to get into their heads, psych them out, and finish them up with Michael Jordan. I think Scotty could have definitely handled uh, uh, Michael Jordan uh, could focus on the offense, and he could let Scotty take on Kobe Bryant, and then nobody could take on Michael, even Kobe. I believe Michael would get his, and nobody would be able to guard Scottie Pippen, and nobody also would be able to guard Tony Kukoc and the rest of those guys. So I think overall, just being Michael Jordan, just being the legend who he was during that time, just the experience wise, just the chemistry wise, they would have beaten those Lakers team. It would be interesting, probably a 6 or 7 game series, but then in the end, I still think Michael and the Bulls would have won that. The second team that I mentioned was the Miami Heat of LeBron James and Dwayne Wade. That was a pretty good team, and prime LeBron James. Also, still pretty good D Wade, even though he was a little bit on the decline. And he struggled with injuries at times with that Miami Heat team. But Chris Bosh was there. Ray Allen was there for the second run, or for the second championship. So they had a great team there. Shane Battier, Mike Miller. They had all of that. But as great as LeBron is, and as great as D Wade was, and Chris Bosh, and uh, they beat the Spurs on their second championship, and they beat the young OKC team. Those were great teams, but those were not in the level of Michael Jordan. I mean, uh, you know, up until now, even though I personally respect LeBron, and I think he's going to end up as the second best player to ever play this game. The reason why he's not going to be number one is because he was never the finisher that Michael was. Michael, when he got into the finals, as we know, he never lost there. It's because it's just that his mentality, his leadership, his talent. Uh, he would not allow them to lose, and the way that he would close games, um, nobody would, not even LeBron could stop Michael. And I think it would be a great and entertaining series, but I would say it would be a 5 game series or 6 game series at the most. Again, Scotty, he could lock up Dwayne, and I believe that Michael could have could have taken out LeBron, and he would just average his LeBron. Uh, he'll get his sort of triple double. Uh, you know, he'd have an effect over every aspect of the game, but he would not dominate. Michael would always dominate, and LeBron sometimes he put in the numbers, but you know we don't know if not necessarily those numbers look amazing always on paper, but when it comes to finishing or when it matters the most, sometimes LeBron shrinks there, and that's the reason why I think MJ and Scotty and those guys would still come out. Last but not the least, of course, I think this is the most interesting for me, is the new type of NBA ball with small ball, the quick game, with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green and Kevin Durant. Some would say they would beat the Bulls. I would say a 6 or 7 game series, but again, they would always say who's going to guard Steph, who's going to guard Klay Thompson, who's going to guard Kevin Durant. I think uh, I think Dennis Rodman could have guarded Kevin Durant. I think Scotty could have taken turns. They would have taken turns, and Klay Thompson. I think Ron Harper could have done a good job at him, uh, or during those runs, or Michael could have. Of course, Steph's a quick player, and we all know that he can do his thing against Michael Jordan. But conversely, on the offensive end, I think Clay can be neutralized. I think Kevin, to a certain extent, could be neutralized uh, by Dennis Rodman and even Steph Curry. But again, going back to the other side, I mean, who's going to stop Michael? I don't think anybody in that team would have stopped Michael, not even Kevin Durant. I think if he tried, he would have had 3 fouls immediately in the first quarter, first 2 quarters alone. Even even if they say we're playing this era's rules, wherein there's no hand checking, all the more would MJ dominate. He would probably average 50 or 40. If he averaged 40 against those Celtics, the rough and tough Celtics, he would average 30 plus against those Pistons, the bad boy Pistons, and against those rough and tough New York Knicks of the 90s. They would just beat Michael up with Charles Oakley, Anthony Mason, Patrick Ewing, John Starks, and all of those guys, Bill Laimbeer, Rick Mahorn, John Sally, Joe Dumars, and Isaiah Thomas. They would gang up on Michael. And Boston had that incredible front line of Larry Bird, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish. They had DJ, they had a scrapper and Danny Ainge and all those other guys. Michael still averages 30 and 40 plus points. All the more in this soft era. I'm sorry to say that. I respect the game of Stephen Curry, Kevin Durant, and Klay Thompson. Those are great guys, and those are great offensive players. But nobody will be able to stop Michael Jordan. He would probably average 40 to 50 points per game, and they would just fall out. Draymond Green would fall out. Kevin Durant would probably fall out, and I think that's a difference maker. And we're not even talking about Scottie Pippen. We're not even talking about Tony Kukoc and all those other supporting guys that Michael would feed or could facilitate into. So as interesting as it may sound, this is not NBA 2K. At the end of the day, I think Michael and the Bulls would still win. So those are the 3 teams that I think the Bulls could play against. I don't know if um, if you share the same thoughts. Again, we don't have to agree, and we can definitely disagree, but we can be gracious about it. Leave your comments below, and hopefully we can have a great discussion as I shared a while ago. So that's it for now. I'm looking forward to having more, and I hope you're looking forward for more conversations. I know basketball never stops. We can still talk about basketball even in this time of the coronavirus. So hope you enjoyed this video. Again, hope you like it. Click on like and subscribe. And thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.